because in acting, right, you realize how similar you are. I try to substitute, okay, what in my life has happened to make me feel this way? So you realize that, like, at the end of the day, we all share this same human experience, this same human connection. If a character has maybe lost a parent, and if you as the actor haven't lost a parent, you may not be able to relate to that exactly, but you can relate to a time when you lost something. Ultimately, what storytelling reminds me of is our shared, just human experience.
Yo, what is good, creators? Welcome to the Create to Inspire Corner, where I, your host Coriel, interview creators from around the world, allow them to share their stories, give you some of the creative inspo you need so you can go on and create to inspire in your own community. And today's main topic is all about the power of inspiring stories through film. And today's special guest is ADELAOYE. She's a singer and actress. And today, you're going to hear about her story, her passions in herself, and so much more, and her perspective on today's main topic. Anyways, get right into it. Miss Ade, thank you so much for hopping on the Create to Inspire Corner. How you doing?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm great. It's a little chilly down here in Philadelphia, but I'm doing well. Thank you.
That's awesome. So starting off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your passions, and what you love to do.
Okay, like Coriel said, I'm an actor by training. Went to Penn State, actually.
Hey.
We are Penn State. Go
Yeah.
PSU. Sorry, Second Theater at Penn State. I don't always like to introduce myself by like what I do, because I'm so much more than what I do. But since we are talking about storytelling, my background is in theater. More specifically, and now film and TV. So I studied acting many years ago at Penn State, and I sing. I'm a teaching artist as well. So speaking about creating to inspire, I do like to teach children storytelling through acting. I teach acting classes, do workshops and things like that for people who are interested in getting into the profession. So I do a little. I'd say I'm like just a creative in general. I was that kid who was always performing in front of the mirror with my hairbrush, as my microphone, and singing along to all the Disney songs. Like I come from a very artistic family, so the love and passion for the arts has definitely been in me ever since I was a little girl. So getting to do that as a career I'm so grateful for that. And it's so amazing and it's so awesome. But yeah, I'm Nigerian. I was born in the States, but raised in Nigeria, and kind of grew up in both places. So I have an interesting background, you would say. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I'm currently spending some time with my family in Philadelphia, and I work in the Nigerian movie industry, known as Nollywood.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm up to.
That's great. That's great. So you said you've been teaching, other people, other kids about, sharing their story, about storytelling through acting. That's really cool. I love that. And so can you kind of dive into more, what do you believe is the impact of storytelling through film? And can you tell us a little bit more about how it's impacted you personally?
I definitely think storytelling is probably the oldest art form. I even mentioned like my Nigerian background. Like that was kind of how like stories are passed down from generation to generation. All cultures across the world cherish and value storytelling. So for me, it's been important in my life because storytelling was sort of how I learned to use my imagination. I remember as a kid, we would like sit under the tree, like late in the evenings, and like my uncles and aunts would like tell us stories. So things like that would happen. Like there was a show called Tales by Moonlight that I used to watch growing up, and like literally just oral tradition being passed down from generation to generation. We learned about like the tortoise and the rabbit and like all of these stories that I still remember. It was just a way to gather communities. It was a way to build communities. And so I think storytelling is very important. And so specifically for me in my own career as well, I think storytelling allowed me to imagine that anything was possible. And that's how I'm here today.
Wow, that's great. So I know like by now you've done so many different roles. I know you've been a part of a series called Castles and Castles. By the way, congrats on it being, relaunched for season 2 with Netflix. And as well finding Hubby and also Lizard, the short film. Yes, can you tell us a little more about that short film Lizard? I'd love to learn more about that.
Lizard was a short film that won the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival, directed by Akinola Davis Jr. So I mean, I honestly don't have any like impressive story about how I got into that production. I literally just auditioned,
Wow.
and the casting director reached out to me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm casting the short film. I'd love for you to audition." And I auditioned, and I got cast. And then the film has gone on to do amazing things. So I didn't have a super big role in that. It was literally just like one scene. I played the mom of the lead character in that. And then it went on to Sundance to do amazing things. So
Wow.
it's like surreal. I was like, oh my gosh, like, we won at Sundance. I think we got longlisted, I think, for a BAFTA nomination as well. So it's cool to be associated with projects that are
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. So, like, with all the characters and all the different roles that you've played, I think each one that you've played has your own individual story. Have there ever been lessons that you've learned from the characters that you've played that you've been able to apply to your own life?
Definitely. What I would say though is because in acting, right? When you're, I think, short acting lesson here. Oftentimes when I'm getting into character or breaking down a story or trying to get into the mind of this character,
Mm-hmm.
you realize how similar you are
Mm.
rather than because you don't always play characters that have your similar life experience. But in acting, we do this thing called substitution, right? Where you put yourself in a position. So it's called as if, right? So
Mm.
if a character is going through a certain circumstance or situation that I may not have ever experienced in my own life, I try to substitute, okay, what in my life has happened to make me feel this way,
Mm.
right? And sometimes it's harder to get there if the character is like so completely different than you, but oftentimes it's not. And so you realize that like at the end of the day, we all share this same human experience, this same human connection. If a character has maybe lost a parent, and if you as the actor haven't lost a parent, you may not be able to relate to that exactly, but you can relate to a time when you lost something that was
Mm.
near and dear to your heart. And it's putting yourself in that space of grief. Like, okay, how did I feel when I lost, this thing that was really important to me? So I think ultimately what storytelling kind of reminds me of is our shared just
Mm.
human experience. And I think oftentimes too, when you play characters who are completely different from yourself, like say a villain, for instance, my
Mm.
character on Castle and Castle she's sort of like a villain. She's just a troublemaker and it's just like destroys things. So while that's not who Ade is,
Mhm.
you try to sort of get yourself into this space of what makes her do the things that she does.
Mm.
Obviously, there's something has happened to her along the way. She's experienced something that sort of made her who she is. So it makes you, I think it's just like helped me to become more empathetic, even as a
Mm.
human being, because you're just like, oh my gosh, like for this person to make these kinds of decisions, for this person to be this way, they had a journey, they had an experience, and it's my job as an actor to convey that to the audience. And that process also just helps me get in touch with my own empathy, and just helps me to realize that, like, wow, if I was ever backed up against the wall, I may even make these same
Mm.
kinds of choices. So it helps me to grow in my humanity. And it's honestly it's kind of like therapy. Like I process a lot
Wow.
through my characters. Like, because as an actor you have to sort of be like open to all the emotions that come.
Mhm.
And so when you're dealing with things like loss or grief or depression or even joy, you have to just be open to let those feelings flow through you without blocking them, without stopping them.
Mm.
So it just helps me be more human.
Yeah. I love it. One thing I love that you said is that we're learning through acting. You've been able to learn and realize that we're all kind of connected in one story, one human experience, and that from that produces that empathy that you've been able to attain, from what you do. I love that, and thank you so much. So, moving on to today's what I call creative question of the day. You ready? All right. If your life had a movie title, what would your life stories? What would the title of your life story be?
I don't think I've like lived that much. Like I'm still young. I'm
Yeah,
still young.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Still young. Still have a lot of life
Yes,
left in
ma'am.
me.
Yes, ma'am.
But I would say, I guess at this point, it would probably be something like she believed she could, and so she did.
Wow.
Because I feel like that kind of just represents my mindset
Hmm.
about this path that I've taken. Is like I honestly I didn't have a plan when I set out. I was just like, you know what, I want to do this thing, and I just put in the work, and I'm still putting in the work. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't end. Like I'm still
Yeah.
putting in the work, you know. So I would say believe she could, so she did.
She believed she could, so she did it. I love it. Yes, ma'am. So the last question I have for you is a question that I ask in every single episode of our show. Viewers will know this question coming up. What does the phrase "create to inspire" mean to you?
What does the phrase create to inspire mean to me? So I don't think of myself as inspirational
Hmm.
necessarily. And it's not like a, self-deprecating thing. I'm just living my life.
Mm.
So, I don't wake up in the morning and go, how am I going to inspire people today? I'm sure that's a good thing to do. But I mean, like I said, it's not something
Yeah.
I do consciously. So when people come up to me like you and you're like, oh, I want to, I want to interview you. And I'm like, why? Not because I don't think this is
Hmm.
great. I'm just like, I don't think I have anything, inspirational to share or to say. But I then, kept thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I think what I find inspiring is seeing people live their authentic lives and be their authentic selves, and that somehow gives me the bravery to go ahead and do the same.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh, okay, what if that's how people see me? Like, oh, she's doing it, so I can do it. So I think that's kind of what I've settled on, is the like me being free and being courageous to live out my dreams gives other people permission to do the same. So it's
Mm.
not this conscious thing of inspiring people, but just by living in my purpose, showing people, you know, that I'm not perfect, but I'm going ahead and I'm doing it anyway,
Hmm.
allows people to do the same. So I hope that when people see me or hear me, they have the permission to then go out and do whatever their thing is. It doesn't have to be acting, but whatever it is for them, that they can be authentic and live their purpose that way. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yes, ma'am. I love that. It's a great answer. So it's kind of like being free to be me. And when people see that, you're being yourself, they have the courage and bravery to be themselves too. I love that. I love it. So where can people, support you, follow you on social media, any of that kind of stuff?
So I'm mostly active on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Snapchat, but I'm rarely ever on Snapchat. But you can definitely link up with me on Instagram and Twitter at ADELAOYE on both platforms. That's ADELAOYE. Yeah, and I usually just post about my latest projects, what I'm up to. Yeah, so that's how you can connect with me.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dave, for hopping on the Create to Inspire Corner. Had a blast talking to you. And thank you so much for you guys watching at home. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and are able to take some of the main topics we talked about and apply it to your own life and your own story. Create to inspire. Peace.